Hi, this is Joe Satriani, and you're watching the Musician Network. Stay tuned.
Joe's unveiling his new Peavey Mini Colossal amplifier, which sounds freaking amazing. So, Joe, what made you decide to get with the Peavey guys and do a small amplifier like this?
Oh, it's really a dream come true. You know, starting out with these guys a few years ago, I mentioned to Hartley that my idea was really to have a whole line of amplifiers. Some would be modern, some would be vintage, and we would try to do something different with each amp. Try to address a need that all guitar players have been looking for and have not quite found it in one little package. So that little Mini Colossal amp really addresses the problem of not being able to hold on to, or let's say even find, that ultimate vintage little amp that's going to really sound like 50 feet tall in the studio.
You're right.
So we added some features to it. We added a speaker that was more robust, that would break up in just the right way, the way guitar players would want it to, you know, if they're using that high gain setting. With the effects loop, the beautiful tremolo in there, the power sponge, and the direct out, it answers all of those little problems that we have in using the amp, not only in a live situation, but to record. So this is fantastic, and it's like a new beginning. Every time you design something new with a company like Peavey that has the capability of building anything from the ground up,
Right.
It's almost like it's a new beginning, you know. So I see it that way. And the prototype I used on my last record, Super Colossal, and I had such a good time with it. It was an easy project for everyone to get on board with, because everybody loved the sound of it. They loved the fact that it was a nice little light small amp, and it would work in a guitar lesson studio or in a club or in any recording situation. So we're really happy the way it turned out.
That's awesome. So I'm just going to take this one with me.
Oh yes, go right ahead.
Okay.
They're free, by the way.
Yeah.
Peavey's giving them out to everybody.
Okay, good. Well, then I already know Hartley. Well, great. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
See you later.
Joe.
Who better to tell us about it than Joe himself? Joe Satriani.
Right on time, just walked in. How's everybody doing? Well, all right. It's funny, you know, usually you've got something really big to stand in front of, and, you know, at a point like this, but of course we've got something really small this time, so it's kind of unusual. But this really, this little amp is yet another little thing that I dreamt about and sat down with Hartley many months ago, and believe it or not, a napkin and a pen, and we started thinking about how we could create a lot of great music in a little box, you know. Guitar players know that, you know, little things sometimes make the biggest sound when you're recording. And I've gone through maybe 20 little Fender champs and funny little Magnetones and Gibson amps and all sorts of things over the years of making records. And the problem is that you got to turn them way up. The speakers don't last very long. The selection of the speakers aren't very good. And there's a lot of things that you wish you could do to these things, but of course they're old, and so you don't want to change anything. You want to retain its vintage quality. But I knew that there's still a real need for a small amp, Class A, getting rid of the negative feedback so you can get the thing to really perform the way you want, the same way all the time. And that's really what started the ball rolling, was Hartley and myself being on the same page about wanting an amp like this. And the Mini Colossal amp here, of course, this is really, it embodies all these little things that we wanted to put in there. First and foremost, it is a very small amp, as you can tell. You've been taking pictures of it. It's about 5 watts. It's Class A, and it's got a beautiful little speaker in there that rocks right when you turn the thing up, which is the great thing about it. Now, I wound up using the prototype for a song called Super Colossal that was the title track of my last record, and that sort of got the thing rolling for me in using it further on the record as an alternative to just about everything that's modern. You know, a lot of modern amps have a lot of gain, there's a lot of compression that comes with it, and along with it you get a lot of playing possibilities. But what you miss sometimes is, I suppose, the ultra dynamic range that a Class A amp, even a really small one, gives you. That's what this little amp has got in it. It's got it's got that thing. I guess you'd have to call it, it's touch sensitive, you know. A lot of people throw that phrase around, but this thing really does the trick. It does a couple of things that those little old amps never did. It does have a kind of a master volume that Hartley put together for us. We call it a power sponge. This thing allows you to get the sound that you want from the input volume at any level, all the way cranked up, or you can bring it down to a whisper or turn the thing off. At the same time, it's got a direct out that sounds really amazing, and it works independent of this power sponge. So imagine if you're in a small studio, or you're recording in your basement or your closet or wherever, and you really want the sound of that volume on 12, but you can't hear it, but you want it going into your recording console that way. This is the perfect little amp to get that thing to happen, because it retains all the qualities of Class A and through the direct out, but you can take the power sponge and you can bring it down to almost nothing, or you can turn it off and it doesn't affect the sound of the amp, and you still can arrange any kind of signal you want going out of that XLR output in the back there. We've got an effects loop that's a little bit different than you know, what you'd see on a JSX head or any modern head. Basically, this thing is affected by the gain setting that you're using in the front. So I was trying to basically make sure that we didn't wind up taking a Class A amp and then sort of bringing it away from that world by starting to add things like effects loop that eventually would slow the signal down dramatically from hitting the transformer. And with this effects loop, you can kind of get that sound of, let's say, Neil Young gets with a delay going into the front of his vintage deluxe. If you want, you can run your delay high like that, and you'll find that as you bring up the volume, you're going to get that distortion coming into the effect. This is like an alternative, as I said, to, let's say, the way you might record using a plug-in or using a modern amp that's got you know, a fully buffered effects loop. It's a completely different ballpark. And finally, we've got a beautiful tremolo that really embodies that sort of vintage tone that I was looking for in a small amp. And all of this was accomplished actually quite quickly. John Fields, the engineer, and I had a great time because we shared the same vision along with Hartley of making a really exciting little amp that you could pick up, bring to any room. You wouldn't bitch about the weight or anything like that. And of course it looks really cool, and it sounds really great. And actually, I wanted everyone to get a chance to play it, so you know, my idea was to get people to play, because you know, when I start playing it, it's just going to sound like me, but that's not really the point of the amp, really. I've actually got quite enough amps, so, but the idea in getting behind the design of these amps is to get them in the hands of other people and see what they do with them, because everyone's going to sound different when they plug into them. But it's different, you know, once again, like we started with the JSX, it was a very different kind of a amplifier to put together, and now we've made another step and tried to do something very different that other manufacturers aren't doing, to try to, you know, provide yet another interesting tool that I think other guitar players are yearning for, like I have over the years.